Okay, thank you so much to everyone who joined our webcast today. I'm really super excited about it and thankful that you're here. I'll do my very best to make sure that this is a great investment of your time. This is not a sales presentation, but meant for educational purposes to help you understand more about powerful technologies from RSA Solutions that might benefit your business. So anyway, with that said, just a little bit about the agenda. I want to take just a minute to do a little intro of some updates to our website, then specifically some information about Planity that I think that you will find helpful as you're preparing for seeing a live presentation. I'm going to introduce my business partner to you, who will be actually doing the live demonstration for you. And so you'll see the demonstration of the product functioning literally from front to back, totally integrated, very, very amazing. I'm super, super excited about it. And we've allotted enough time that within this 1 hour period max, that we'll have plenty of time for question and answer. So please don't hesitate to be thinking about what you might want to ask, and hopefully we'll answer some of them as we move along. I just want you to notice that I'm here, if you're looking at the URL, that I'm at rogershaw.com. Great place to come. There's lots of information, not only about solutions, but about events and stuff that are coming up, all kinds of videos and financing information. Just want to give you an example of how it works. If you went to solutions, and for example, you clicked on planning and scheduling, you're automatically going to come to a planning assistant page for those that might be interested in how can they schedule their factory to meet their productivity goals and ensure that they're meeting deadlines, and being able to see all of this integrated, of course, with our other solutions as well. Of course, you could come down to things like, sorting or tracking or those kind of things, and see relative to information related to Production Coach as well. And then finally, how you get to this place is that if you come and you click on Woodworking Solution, Purchasing and Inventory, it's going to take you right to where I am today. So hopefully that helps you with the navigation of the website a little bit. And let's go ahead and get started. So first of all, a little background about Planity. Just about the time that the pandemic hit, it had become obvious to me, after helping a number of customers on board with Production Coach, that there was this missing element in our industry, something that was preventing companies from being able to execute business as well as they wanted. And in some cases, it even prevented or held people up from moving forward with Production Coach, because they were so concerned about the chaos and lack of visibility and just a number of things related to materials. And so I had a person one time say to me, "Hey, Sean, your shipping module and Production Coach is totally amazing, but what happens if I didn't have all the materials available to finish the job?" And he was absolutely right. And so once I had determined the basic 5,000-foot view of what this technology needed to do, I contacted a partner that I'm going to introduce you to today, because of the trust that I have in him and because of his skill sets. And we began to architect what it is that this product Planity would look like and what it would do for customers. So here's what I'll ask you, even though you can't answer verbally, you can use the question section or chat to be able to do it. But what if it were possible that there was a bridge that could connect your Cad Cam system directly to your accounting system? For example, what if your cabinet vision could automatically be bridged over to QuickBooks? And so what could that mean? Well, what about the BOM requirements or the bill of material that could be coming out of your microvellum or whatever it is? What if those could be captured? What if those could be associated with logic to vendors and lead times and prices and a number of things? What if, as a result of doing that, you could get allocations against things that you have in inventory? What if you could get purchasing suggestions? What if those purchase orders were automatically created in QuickBooks? What if you could receive against those purchase orders? What if you could generate live QR codes for those items and to be able to scan those items then into locations and then ultimately into work in progress and eventually relieved from inventory? And what if not only could it connect together your Cad Cam system and your accounting system, but also be able to connect to, MES systems like Production Coach? So let me give you a quick example. What if I wanted to connect EMOS to Planity to QuickBooks, but I wanted to actually flush the materials when a work order status in Production Coach reached a certain level? So for example, maybe it was shown now started at panel saw. So now I just flushed all the sheet stock. It started at edge banding. I flushed all the edge banding. We've started at assembly. I flushed all the hardware. So really powerful, but yet simple way to take great technologies that you're probably already using and be able to make those work together. Planity is SQL on Azure cloud. And so here we have an application that is going to be installed locally, Windows-based, for the main or the configuration, the office, those kind of hefty things, and also giving you the ability to utilize web for all of the in-factory kind of applications. I just received it, I transferred it, I balanced against inventory, so really, really well thought out system. So here it is, so I get this right. Integrated with popular Cad Cam solutions, Planity enables your business to take control of purchasing and inventory perfectly synchronized with QuickBooks Enterprise. With Planity, purchasing, allocations, receiving, location management, WIP, and checkout / flush are easily managed in real time. If you visit this page, you've got a lot of opportunity to explore more in depth, a number of screens that you can, of course, make easily visible for what you might want to do. So for example, if I wanted to be able to see how I could, let's do something like receive an order. So you'll be able to see the entire interface. It's well laid out, grid systems. It's very easy for you to be able to control and just logical. So it's able to be utilized not only in the office, but easily in the factory as well. And then a number of short videos to be able to help you see how can it integrate with engineering. What's it like on the shop floor functions, and what's it like to be able to move the data into accounting, and in this case, that is QuickBooks Enterprise. So that's just kind of a small tour of Planity at kind of a 5,000-foot level. And so, of course, it has a number of great features to it that hopefully we'll cover at least a number of those today. So at this time, what I really want to do is I want to introduce you to someone that's very special to me, someone that has been part of my business life and friendship for a good number of years, someone that I not only trust, but I know is super, super smart and also has that what it takes to make sure that a customer is satisfied. Even if it means that it comes at his own personal cost or whatever it is, he always goes the extra mile to make sure that the customer experience is the very best. So I'm super thrilled to have TechWood as our development and support partners in this Planity application, and specifically the owner of TechWood, Mr. Quentin Petty. So without building his head up to be too much, I just want to say this. I'm so excited that we're at this place. We are where we are. We had started rolling out this technology, and we've got it in some great customers, as you can see, related to here, and it gets better and better all the time. And it is a perfect place and time for others to consider, does this fit perfectly for them? I will tell you this much, even if you come to me and say, Sean, I really love this, I need a solution, but I don't want to use QuickBooks. Well, if you want to be integrated to an accounting system, it's going to be QuickBooks Enterprise. If you come to me and you say, hey, you know what, my data is coming from something other than your sources that you have listed here, a Cutright, an EMOS, a Cad Cam, a Microvellum, Cadnavision, I would say thank you very much, but we're not ready for you. What we have is a perfect recipe that we know that we can help customers be hugely, highly successful and integrated nicely with the system. And so that's where we are, at least here in 2021. So without a whole lot more to it, Clinton, what I want to do is unmute you if I possibly can.
Excellent. Thanks very much for the introduction, Sean. Excellent. No, I appreciate it. And thanks to everybody who's taken the time to join. And I appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit about Planity. So I think Sean gave a good high-level summary. So I'm just going to reiterate. So Planity is the kind of solution in the hub. It's kind of in the middle and has a focus on planning for materials and inventory control. And then depending on the implementation, we have integrations with engineering solutions. For today, I'm going to use some data from Cabinet Vision just as an example. And for accounting, we can use QuickBooks Enterprise. So that is the general layout of the software. There's a variety of data sources that we have to work with. So Cabinet Vision, for example, has Access databases and text files. Planity is Cloud, Azure, SQL. And we also maintain documents. So those could be stored, for example, on your company's cloud storage, for example, Dropbox. And then QuickBooks has its own proprietary data set. So let me go ahead and launch the user interface. So this is the interface for Planity, the desktop version. And this is where kind of the setup and the heavy lifting happens. Later on, we're going to look at a different user interface for the shop floor. So I mentioned the integrations, and those are kind of key for us in that Planity could really operate on its own, but to get the really enhanced functionality, we leverage integrations with engineering solutions and with accounting to put a package together. And there's also somewhere in the middle some MES solutions, for example, Production Coach. I'm not going to show the Production Coach integration, but because I'm going to manually make the steps happen that Production Coach would traditionally automate for us. So if I start with the integrations, they're fairly simple and they read in real time the data in the solutions that we're integrating with. So here, for example, I've just launched from Cabinet Vision, and this is their materials library. So you can see that some of the data is configured. I've asked for some things to be ignored, and you'll see that a little bit later on. And it continuously updates. If you make changes in the engineering solution, those are reported back to us, and we understand them as action items to be addressed. The QuickBooks integration, the format is very similar, and we're basically linking all of the entities inside of QuickBooks with Planity. So indirectly, in this case, Cabinet Vision is actually being linked to QuickBooks through the intermediary as Planity, basically. So internally, Planity handles or manages what I call an item master. This is kind of the hub of where the knowledge resides in Planity. And with this knowledge that we attach to all of the items, we are able to understand how to react when we receive a bill of materials and so on. So of the items, we classify them into categories, which we call families. And there's two main types. There's project items, which are purchased specifically for a project, one at a time. And there's inventory type items, which are managed for the entire organization, and multiple orders can consume inventory from those items. So I have a somewhat generic item here, hinge B, that's just used to demonstrate. And on the right panel, we can see some planning values. So some of these might make sense. So we have safety stock and lead times and order quantities and lot sizes. So a brief explanation here. I've asked that we should maintain 60 units of this item. But down below, you'll notice that we're getting a recommendation to purchase 55 of them, which is kind of a strange number. Down below, we are understanding that in the system we have 7 of these items in inventory. So it's still a strange number because 7 plus 55 would not give us 60. So that's just a demonstration that it's observing these rules. For example, the lot size is 5, so the purchase recommendation will always be in multiples of 5 in this case. So our objective always in the system is to never allow this promise value to become negative, because in theory that would mean we run out of materials. So I have it here, I forced it this way on purpose so that you can see it. Some other general information that we can see against items. So there's a purchasing history against that item. So what's outstanding, what we're planning but haven't committed, and what has been completed. Where's our current inventory? So we got 5 at one location and 2 at another. If you can remember, this value is 7 here. We also keep a track record of every transaction that happens. So we got adjustments, transfers, WIP, and we manage all of these relieve against the sales order. We track all of the locations and the users that commit those actions. There's also vendor setup. There can be multiple vendors. We always maintain one default vendor. And you can see here there's some duplicates of these values, for example, a lead time. And that's because we can override and go vendor specific if we have multiple vendors. Notes and documents and children, I'm going to leave that alone for a moment, and I'm going to come to that, back to that. So this is an example of a typical inventory-based item that we can manage. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit and show a project-based item, and this one actually has a little more to it that I hope will demonstrate some of the care we've taken on the integration with the engineering solutions. So for example, this happens to be a door style TNT Highland. But as you can understand, when you purchase these doors, you could have any variation of dimension, and it could be made out of different materials. So this particular item has what we call dimension attributes. So this is a number of different dimensions that are related to that parent item. I will want to mention, though, that all of these dimension children are actually created on the fly. So as we read a new order from Cabinet Vision, and that engineering has defined a new size that was never previously understood in the software, we generate that all in the background with a set of rules that the user gets to define for the system. In addition, just an example that I chose to attach a document to this item. It's of course nothing extravagant. This could be PDF of a part drawing, an assembly, whatever instructions you want. So I just attached a text file to that. What's important is we do have some attributes here that we can request the system show this whenever this item or child is used in a purchase order and when it's being received. So we'll notice that a little bit later on. Okay.
Hey, Quentin, while you're doing that, can I just make a quick statement? And I apologize for interrupting.
Oh, no, we're just sharing, so that's good.
Yeah, so guys that are listening to this, I don't know that there exists, doesn't mean it doesn't, I don't know that there exists a system that is integrated at this kind of depth level with Cad Cam. So this data is coming from a company using Cabinet Vision that is buying out their doors, that by having one master level of a particular door style in Cabinet Vision, literally all of these item master level things are being created on the fly, and it's not required that you go to Quickbooks and create all these items in order to be able to buy against it. If you think about that for just a moment and understand the power of what is happening, the integration is super smart and very, very deep. So thank you for letting me say that.
No, I appreciate the reinforcement. Yeah, we put a lot of investment into that. So, all of that is happening. I want to say automatically, there were some rules set up initially to make that happen. And then it just keeps repeating it. So if a new material is added or a new size is engineered, all of that gets generated automatically. And we take care of it later on. There's a special feature for grouping purchase order lines into QuickBooks, so that QuickBooks really just has to manage the parent item. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to mention is that those created a project level item, and just keep in mind that one of those doors, for example, could have been a new size, but when we import it, it could also have something special like a wider top rail, for example, or something like that. Then we have another concept of a custom item. So we can keep it separate from everything else and allow the user to add documentation. That user is usually the engineer or purchasing agent, so that they can clarify for the vendor what that is, and at receiving they can understand what that is. So we'll take a peek at that in a little bit. So at the moment, I'm going to go ahead and actually import some fresh data into the system so we can push it through. At the moment, I just went to a form here. It's a very basic form that basically shows us in the system, what does the system think we should be ordering at the moment? So you can see there's no project items and there is one inventory item. So this inventory item, if I take a look at it, it's showing that it suggests 55, currently have 7 on hand, and then there's some numbers here, how it does the calculation. And I can see that it's being generated because I have this safety value in here. So just as a reminder, that's back to this item that we'd set up here, just for demonstration purposes. That's kind of behind. So whenever this is negative, we end up with a suggestion here to purchase. So I'm not going to address this one because we're going to add some more items in here from a live order from Cabinet Vision. So at this point, I just wanted to, this is basically a bench that we can see all of the orders in the system, and you can see I basically have set the status for all orders to be archived at the moment. So just to make it clear that we have some new data that's coming into the system. So if I go in the project management, inside of here, each project has a hierarchy, and then it also has orders within it. And at the moment, there's no order 8058. I happen to know the one that I staged. So 8058 with no extension on it. So this is the file set that Cabinet Vision would produce automatically as part of its output. So we're going to go ahead and process that one. So I'm pushing a button for this actually, and typically this would be done automatically by the software in the background, but I wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to kind of see how the steps work. So inside of the project management now, if I go ahead and look for the 8058, it's not showing up, so I need to refresh, and then we should see a new one here. So I just wanted to make sure that you can see that we're generating a fresh set of data. So they're probably all the way at the bottom here. So you see order new, order new. These are all the ones that have just arrived, because previously we only had the order archive. So I'm going to hide those away. And just so that you can see, this is all the orders that were introduced from that one import. I'm going to pick just this one order, which is the kitchen, in this case, just because I know it has a larger bill of material. So here we can see a list of what we call engineering items. So engineering items are exactly what is brought over from the engineering solution. So if I scan down this, you can see there's a long list. A lot of these are duplicates as well. Okay, but it's exactly as the engineering solution presented it to us. Down the bottom here are all the custom doors that we created. Sorry, project level doors. So once this bill of material arrives for us, before we start processing it, typically we're going to switch the status to demand review, and I'm going to do it for this entire set. And I'm also going to adjust the date, because I want to make sure that it gets into kind of forcing the order to be late, basically. Oh, I apologize. So it looks like they've disappeared. That's because I changed the status. So this is the set now, and those are all in demand review. So I'm going to be actually working through one of these orders, but just so that you're aware, there is a workbench here. It's an engineering focus where we can address all of the orders in the system at the same time with that particular status. So you'll notice me as I go through the demo kind of clicking these statuses over and over, and they're event driven, and it helps automate some of the processes for us. So if I go back to this kitchen, and I mentioned that custom. So what we could do, for example, is take one of these doors and switch it to be custom. At that point, it allows us to add some documentation to it. The valid is important to us because these are where we've been able to find a match between Cabinet Vision's items and Planity. You'll also notice way in the beginning, I mentioned that sometimes will be ignore. So if the item is set up to ignore, this will be checked over here. And basically the system will do exactly that, just ignore it. So there are some actions. We can substitute items here. So if you, in engineering, we got PVC solid as the edge banding. You could choose to switch that out with a different item. If you want to just eliminate it, then you ignore it. But for most cases, we're going to take this list and basically create what's called demand out of it. So I initiated that process. So at this point now, we have a new set of entities. This is demand, and we can start planning against this demand. The demand is engineering items do not show up in purchase order suggestions, only the demand will become effective in there. So just as a side, I was going to show that. In the project management workbench, you can also navigate through this. This is a little bit easier to look at. So we have all of the same information available here for review. Okay, so as these items start to get processed, what happens is, in order for something to be requested, we have to have a shortage, and that shortage can come from demand, which is what we're practicing at the moment. So you'll notice that we track these are the main ideas we track. The inventory, that's what we have physically on hand. The contribution is what is coming from our vendors that we have committed to. And then the demand is what the sales orders are requesting for us to purchase. So I'm just going to review here a sample of an item that we have that I believe is on that bill of material list. And I was expecting a demand, so okay, so it really has a purchase order outstanding for those. All right, so let's go ahead and confirm this new demand that's going to be final. So basically, it's the instruction to the software that we've reviewed that demand now. And this could be all automatic if we don't want to make all of the changes. But this is now saying, okay, all of this bill of material is ready to go, and we can start planning against those items. So now that I've made that demand final, on this tab, we can see all of the project-related items, which in this case is basically the doors. And then on the inventory side, we have a selection of items that the software is suggesting that we purchase. So this first one is based on a safety. That was the one there originally. And then now a number of them have started to show up based on demand. So this is from orders, basically. So all this is doing is basically suggesting we should be looking at these items to purchase. So to actually get the purchase order, we're going to try and generate that. So at this point in time, I have a number of old purchase orders in here that were classified as test, just so we have a starting point. So I'm going to ask the system to generate for us purchase order suggestions. So that's processing at the moment, and we should get, so we got a suggestion for 2 new purchase orders. Okay, so one from vendor A, so the items have the vendors assigned to them. So that's this list of items, which looks like it's mostly the doors and then some sheet goods, it looks like up here. And then a second one for vendor B, so it just has the 2 items on there. At this point, if we've reviewed these and we're satisfied with them, we can approve this for purchasing. And actually, we should just review in QuickBooks first. I'm sorry. So this is vendor B. Okay, so this is a live version of QuickBooks that we're attached to, which seems like it's hanging up on me. Oh, it's not hanging up on me. It's on the wrong screen. I apologize. So if we look for vendor B, right now it looks like 48 is the last purchase order that's in the system for vendor B. So push that aside for a second. I'm going to take this purchase order and add to QuickBooks. So in the background, I've processed that one to vendor B, and you'll notice here that it's provided the QuickBooks link, and it's created a purchase order with a reference 49. So if we go into QuickBooks again and look for vendor B, so we'll notice there is a 49 here. If I go ahead and open that up, so it's got the two lines that we had above here that have been created for that vendor B, and it's got the two items, quantity 126 and 4006. Okay, so that was created directly from Planity. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and approve this second one. And at this point in the desktop UI, we're basically for this data set, I think we're in a good position. So I'm going to go ahead and jump across into the Blazor web application. So although I'm launching it from my taskbar here, it's actually a website that is hosted by Microsoft Edge on my machine, but any web-enabled device will be able to run this. Okay, so that's the home screen for the website that most of the shop floor folks would use. So inside here, in general, we have the functions of receiving, adjusting inventory, transferring, relieving against orders, or just WIP in general, cycle counting, and we can review the transactions as we go. So just to give a preview of how these would function. So for example, we just created that one for vendor B. I think it was 49. Yep. So these are the two items that were on there. If we were just going to receive everything, right now the quantity to receive is 0. But we'll go ahead and let it select everything. We could edit and say that actually only on the truck only came 125, for example. But once you have it lined up, then you can go ahead and receive it. And it looks like everything's gone, but we're just focusing on the outstanding items. So if we say all, it has 0 outstanding on this purchase order now. So moving on, oh, by the way, those were sent to receiving, and that was set up as a default on the item. So if we do transfers, actually, I'm going to take a moment and see if I can't demonstrate that we can use the scanning functions when we interact with this. So I want to pretend that I was actually walking up to receiving, and I'm going to move some items. So if I go to this location, I can, this is a QR code that's generated for that location, and typically these locations would be labeled with these in the same way items could be labeled. So let me just make some space so I can do this in real time. Okay, I hope that hope that works for you. So at this point, we're going to try and load the location here just by scanning off of my screen. So I scanned that barcode on the side, and you can see here that it found the associated barcode was receiving. So down here, these bottom two items are the items that we just loaded into that location. So if I want to move something, I just select on it, and either a custom amount or all. So custom, I could type in 125 or whatever it might be. So at this point, I'm going to choose to go to this B1 location. So I'll go ahead and transfer all. So you can see now that 126 items are actually in this B location. So that's an example of an inventory transfer. This same utility can be used for making WIP transfers. Relieving is basically taking the items that were inside of WIP and consuming them against an order. So I just grabbed that sample order that we've been looking at, the kitchen, and you can see that all of these greens are basically items that have not been consumed beyond what we planned. So there's a planned value, which is these values here. And then the, let me switch to these ones that have higher numbers. And then this is what we've actually consumed. And then this is what's available in WIP in order to consume against that. So basically, this would allow you, if everything was in WIP, to transfer everything at one time. Or as they become available in WIP, the system can automatically relieve them for you. Cycle counting is a utility to keep your inventory accurate. And just as an example, if we went to receiving and, or let's go to, this is the one we transferred to. Inside of this location, we can, basically we're matching the theoretical value and what's currently in there. So if there's something that's not correct in one of these, so if we select this item and say there's not actually 126, it's actually 125, it's going to reduce the amount by 1. So that was updated. Now it's showing me these 125. Now we didn't totally lose that record. So we do manage that in the data here. So we can see that we did do a cycle count and we lost 1 here. And the other records are actually also in there because we do want to know when something was counted. You know, a positive check is just as valuable as one where we need to adjust the number. So over time, we can, for example, report which locations have not had their inventory validated for, you know, a certain amount of time. Sean, I think, unless you have questions for me, I think that wraps up at least the high level for the shop floor utility as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. Just want to make sure I've got it right in my head. So what we saw today was that you were able to consume the BOM or bill of material from Cabinet Vision. In the system, based on productivity dates, you were able to generate purchase order suggestions, which were also affected by the lead time of materials. And for inventory items, it was taking into account the settings we might have for safety stock and reorder quantities, and you know, from allocation, and then create purchase orders where needed, either from inventory or for project items, to be able to receive the items, to generate QR codes for the items so that they can be scanned into locations. When we're ready for production, they can be moved easily into WIP, work in progress, and then either manually flushed or even by direct monitoring of the production coach status to flush the materials. And all of this is communicated to QuickBooks.
That's correct, yes. So all of these transactions, this list here is pushed back into QuickBooks so that it keeps up to date with all of the movements basically of the inventory.
Very, very nice. Wonderful, wonderful. I just want to we got about 11 minutes max here before session ends, but I just wanted to get to a couple of the questions. So before I start on questions, I just want to remind everybody attending the webcast that there is a question section. So please feel free, if you've got any questions, please just type them out and I'll try to get to those. If we have enough time. If not, even though you type them, it gives us a chance to get back to you with the answers. So first question. One second, just got to read for just a moment. So this is about edge banding. And so the question becomes, I guess they saw an amount of feet or inches or something. And so they don't order it by the foot. They order it by a roll. So how do you handle the management of data coming from Cad Cam to the way that it would be purchased? Can you answer that, sir?
Yeah, sure. The truth is that all of these, actually, I should bring this. Each of these entities have their own unit of measure. And I do apologize that I flew by that a little bit, but there's actually a unit of measure section where we map how those are referenced between the applications. And then on every transaction that crosses, let's say, the border between those applications, we convert. So for example, always the easiest one for me to explain, if one is millimeter, so it's metric, and the other is inch, then we basically factor over 25.4 to get the new value in the next system. So that can be coming in from engineering and going out to purchasing and then back in through receiving. We have to convert the value each time based on these unit of measure conversions.
Nice.
Yeah.
So just to follow up on this, they didn't ask this question. I'm actually elaborating on it just because I want to make sure that I got it. So let's say that Cabinet Division told me that I needed 2,000 foot of PVC for a job, and so I only buy it by the roll, and the roll happens to be 1,500 feet as an example. It would have created a purchase order for 2 rolls.
Absolutely. So yep. So we get a relationship. That's the unit of measure conversion, that's what we call it. And so that maps the relationship between those 2 units of measure. So we would have got a 1 point something, and because of the rules in the purchasing, it's going to roll it up to the nearest integer in that case.
Yeah, that's really nice.
So in some cases, it'll roll it up to 5s, or it just depends how the item is set up.
Nice. So question here, by the way, that's perfect answer. Just want to get to a few of these. The question is about version of QuickBooks and asking about QuickBooks Online. What is, I'm not sure that I know that like 85% of our customers use QuickBooks, but can you explain about version and whether it needs to be on-premise or online, or however you say that?
Yeah, so at the moment, it's QuickBooks Enterprise, the last few versions. And the major portion or major requirement there is all of the backbone that this version has that is able to understand inventory that the online version doesn't handle.
Very good. So direct answer is it must be QuickBooks Enterprise.
Correct, yes.
Perfect. Hold on a second. Let me read. So if I wanted to get Planity, what are the steps? So Clinton, let me ask it this way. I think I understand what they're saying. So obviously generate a proposal, execute an agreement, exchange money. And so now there is an order in the system. Can you give us an idea of what that experience is like for a customer? Like, are there like, creation of an instance, a kickoff meeting? What is that like after they've said, yep, I want to do it?
Yes, sure. So initially we're going to review with the customer the order because the configuration of the solution is going to vary depending on what the integrations are. Those are the major components. Then we do a little bit more investigation with the users and understand what opportunities we have for data in their existing systems. So let's, for example, say that they have a well-established data set inside of QuickBooks, and that's probably going to be the point that we start. And we have tools in our kit that basically can migrate the data from QuickBooks into Planity. If they don't, we can do it the other way around, so that we don't have a particular direction. So we do have to set up their environment. So we create all the users. So there's an authentication panel that we didn't review today, but that'll provide security for their data. So we got to set all of that environment up. And then we have to do the integrations with Cabinet Vision, for example. So there's some setup for that. There's some setup and training for the Quickbooks integration. And we link all of the data, so we actually facilitate that. It's not just an instruction and then we're gone. And then once all of the data is set up and linked, then we start doing training on the work process. And that's a little bit of a collaboration on how it is we're going to implement Planity to support their workflow. So there's a few steps to it, but we're engaged and we manage the process from the beginning to the end. And of course, with support, we continue working as they go into production.
Nice, thank you.
Yeah.
I think we get time for one last question. So I think I get this. So this is a Cabinet Vision question. Not everything in a project is in Cabinet Vision. I don't know the details of what they're asking, but I've heard that sometimes there might be moldings or corbels or countertops or something that didn't come across in the data. How do we include those kind of materials in the project?
Yeah, I apologize. I totally skipped over that, but you'll notice here the source for this is Cabinet Vision, but inside of an order, you can manually, using this plus sign here, add any items that are part of your item library to the order. In fact, you can create purchase orders with no sales order that ever existed. So this plus sign allows you to add a purchase order, and then the purchase order, you can add as many purchase order lines as you want. So the fact is we could have started with nothing from Cabinet Vision and done every step manually, but being able to consume the Cabinet Vision data basically just automates a whole lot of data entry, makes it accurate and fast.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you. That's all that I'm going to get to today. One thing I try to do, I hope everybody can appreciate, is that I hate long meetings. And so we try to limit webcasts to 1 hour. We will, of course, do more of these webcasts. And so definitely follow or bookmark rsasolutions.com and check out our events page for what's upcoming, whether they're factory tours, webcasts, or other kinds of events. And I want to thank you, Quentin, for doing a great job today and helping us. Looking at MRP or inventory software is not super sexy. If you were drawing a cabinet and you could see all kinds of things on screen, that's kind of cool. And so you did a great job of helping us understand the processes. And to everybody that attended today, I just want to say thank you so much for spending your time. I hope it was a great investment. If we can help you in any kind of a way, please reach out and let us know. We'd be glad to help you take your business to the next level. So with that said, I'm going to end today's webcast with this. Thank you. Have an amazing day. Take care, and God bless.